Quick look at an overview of Office 365's Click to Run. Pretty cool technology. Here we're actually going to demonstrate how to use it. Let's go ahead and get started. So what I've done here is I've already downloaded the tool, and I'm on my server right now. And then notice that I've created this folder called Office 365, and if I go to share specific people, you can see that I've already shared it with everyone and read access. If I wanted to create log files in this as I was having the installations go on for the users, then I'd have to have read-write access there. But read is fine for me for right now. And then here's where I've deployed copied the Office deployment tool. So I'm going to go ahead and double-click this to go ahead and just launch it. Of course, you got to agree to the license agreement. And there's not really a whole lot of sexy stuff here. We're just going to put this in the same folder that I just created, the Office 365. And the files are extracted successfully. Notice that we have this setup file, which is an exe. And that's going to be used in conjunction with a configuration.xml file. Now I'm going to just turn on my views here to show file extensions because you might want to be aware of that. So let me quickly do that. As I go over here, and I'll even show hidden stuff as well, but we'll also go down here to deselect the hide file extensions. You can see now that this is an XML file and that's an exe. Now if I go over to this and I choose edit to the XML, we'll see here that in Notepad it just gives us some kind of an example. You don't have to use what they have here. Anything that's got a bang in it is a remark, so that's not going to actually be doing anything. In fact, this whole file really will do nothing until we remove the bangs. And there's also some syntax that you can see here. In fact, let me go to another web page here. It's this right here. Let me go to the top. It's this reference for the click-to-run configuration.xml file. Be aware of the URL up here at the top. Let me kind of zoom in on that. Okay, it's not too hard, but just go ahead and take a look at that, or Google for this. And this is going to be a very good reference file. Now, some of the syntaxes for the different things that Microsoft offers for various products and all that, quite baffling sometimes. This actually is pretty simple. And I think you'll be just fine. Everybody would be just fine with this. They explain it pretty well. So I would recommend reading through this once or twice to get just at least familiar with it. And that's what you're going to do with this configuration.xml file. You might not use their sample here, but you can just put in whatever information you need to from your own study of that reference file. Also, let me go back over here. Another thing that I've done is, and I'm not done with this yet, I'm just getting this started, but I've got an Office 365 configuration.xml examples file, and I've got some explanations here, and then you can just copy and paste some things that I might have done here. So you can just copy it and then paste it. This will be available for you as a PDF in the Nugget Lab files, which should be to the right of the player in the web browser as you're watching this. And this will be there as well as any other files that I think might be important for you for this course. Now then, skipping ahead here, you can see that I've just renamed the original right here so that we don't overwrite that or mess with it, the sample. And then this one's the one that I've just now created, and you can see here this is what it looks like. This is what I'm going to be using for giving the download instructions, because the download from Microsoft has all different languages, and whether it's 32-bit, 64-bit, and so forth. I'm telling it that I want to download the 32-bit edition of Microsoft Office to this share right here. Okay, and well, you might look at that and say, why would you do 32-bit versions? Why not 64? Well, a couple of reasons that Microsoft states. They recommend the 32-bit version because the 64-bit version does not really give you that big of a performance increase unless you're crunching big numbers, like big Excel spreadsheets or something. And then the other reason is because a lot of the third-party plugins and products that work with Office are still only written for 32-bit. So that could, again, be an issue. The product ID here, there's several other product IDs you might be working with instead, depending upon your licensing and all of that, and which version of Office 365 you opted for. And you can check the reference guide that I showed you earlier for that one. Here's the language, English US. You can also get other languages, you know, Japanese and so forth, if you so desire. So this is a pretty simple file. There's not really a whole lot to that. I've already put in the command line here what I would need to type in, so I'm pointing it to the share right here where setup.exe is. I could have also just gone to that location, you know, change directories there if I wanted to. /download, and then I need to point it to the XML file that has the instructions that we need here as well, which is this again, configurationdownload.xml file. Now from here, I'll go ahead and press enter, and we'll kick off the download here to our local share. So we'll just go ahead and press enter here, and we should see this now get kicked off, and we see some files starting to come down into this share here. I don't know how long this will take. I'll probably need to go to Taco Bell to get a chalupa to wait for this whole download to complete. Any excuse to get a chalupa, folks. All right, we'll give it a few minutes. All right, it looks like it downloaded about 1.08 gigabytes, I think, anyway, worth of data. Yeah, that's about right. Notice that there's also no notifications that it finished. It just kind of stops, so you kind of have to guess just a little bit. By the way, remember when I mentioned that pretty soon the Office 2016 tool was going to be released? Well, as I was chowing down on my chalupa, I was looking at an email, and what do you know, but I was notified that, sure enough, here we have it. The Office 2016 deployment tool is now available as well. Now, for the 70-697, this probably will not be highlighted on it, particularly, I'm guessing not anyway, because the exam has been written prior to this tool being released. All right, now the same XML that we use to download Office 365, we can actually use that to deploy all of Office 365 to a destination client as well. Again, using either a group policy script or just running it from a command line like I'm about to demonstrate here. But what I want to show you here is I've also created an additional Configurationdeploy.xml. Again, these will all be available for you up on nuggetlab.com files once the series is complete. And what I've added into this is some exclusions. Now, this is really kind of for practical purposes because I want this to deploy fast, so I'm not going to deploy an awful lot. Basically, the only thing I didn't leave out was Word and OneDrive. So this is pretty much leaving out all the rest of Office. And I wouldn't have to do that if I would just delete all of these lines right here. It would deploy all of Office. Then it's also going to uninstall faster as well, because I'm going to show you how to uninstall if you want to. And then we have a few additional lines here. Updates enabled. You can say true. You don't really have to do that because it's already enabled by default out of the box. But I could say false if I didn't want updates. And then if you have an update path where you're storing the updates, you would just put a server and a share right there as well. In my case, I'm going to clear that. I don't really want to use that because I'm just going to allow the default updates from Microsoft Office to deploy. Then we have the display level equals none. They will actually see kind of a notification area down on the lower right, but they can't really do much about that. And then there's no EULA to accept. It'll just automatically accept that EULA for them as well. Now that's different than activation, remember. The EULA simply means they agree to the legal the legally binding stuff that you would normally have to read and accept. But the activation is going to happen automatically as soon as the user uses one of the Office pieces for the first time. And then we can also have a logging level here if we want to do any logging with it. Again, we can put a path in that if we want to. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and put a path here. Let me just put in, I think I have a path. So I'm going to go whack whack DC nugget 01 Office 365 and then logs I think I have up there, and it should be shared. I'm going to go ahead and save this file. And then there's the rest of our tags, and that's just part of the normal syntax. So once that's been saved, I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to go ahead and type that into this command line. And here it is. Now I'm just going to go ahead and press Enter, and after a few moments, we should see just a little bit of a splash screen, but there's no next finish, so to speak, that we would normally see in a conventional desktop installation. And I realized I put configuration instead of configure there, so I'll go ahead and launch this once again, and now we'll see what happens. There, sure enough, we see that it is getting started. That'll take just a few moments, and then when it's done, we'll come back and take a look at an installed version of Office. And while it's installing, notice we're 56% of the way along, but notice that we do already have part of Microsoft Office installed. A lot of these are common things that have to be installed, but notice that there's none of the other stuff. What is it? PowerPoint, Access, some of those other things. But I'll just go ahead and launch Word, and notice that even before it's done installing, we can still go ahead and use it. Notice that I do have to enter in my email address here, so I'm going to go ahead and enter in to activate this trainer at jamesconrad.photos, and then we will next to activate that account, enter in the password, and sign in. And that's really all we have to do. Once we launch the app, once it's finished installing, and once it's been activated, really we don't have to stay connected to this anymore. We could be disconnected from the internet, disconnected from the network, and use this locally only if we want. Now then, to remove Microsoft Office, let's go ahead and show you one other simple file. That's this one right here, configuration-removeall.xml, and you can see it's just going to remove all. You can also look at the reference file if you want to just remove maybe a certain language, or be a little bit more granular in what it is that you are removing there if you want to. But I'm going to go back over here now and just repeat this, but this time I'm going to go to, instead of deploy.xml, it's going to be remove, tabbing through, remove all, there we go. And now it'll just start to remove all of Microsoft Office. And then we do get a single prompt. We click it once, and that's all you have to do with this. Then after a while, it tells you you are done installing. You should still probably shut down and restart the computer. Let me just show you the command line version of doing that, just to provide that information for you. And for that, I would just type shut down, and then you can restart with an R or S to shut down and stay shut down, but I'm going to use R. And then the amount of time in seconds, 0 seconds, meaning it's doing it right now. Now, to conclude here, I did want to point out to you a couple of additional articles. One of those would be to deploy Office 365 Pro Plus by using System Center Configuration Manager. And if you're familiar with Config Manager, I don't think you're going to see a lot of surprises in here. You'll still have something like this, a config file and everything, but most of the rest of this is pretty much how you would do a lot of other kinds of applications in Config Manager as well. And then here's deploying Office as part of an operating system image. Now, the key things to keep in mind with this one is that you have to make sure that you don't activate this in your image. You want to make sure that the actual user that's going to use it activates the image. And it'll give you a little bit of information about that here. This again is not going to have huge surprises if any of you have baked applications into your images in the past. And then finally, here's an article here, and again you can just reference the URL at the top on deploying 365 Pro Plus by using remote desktop services. The key thing there is you have to add an additional item in here, and it's this one right here, shared computer licensing in your configuration.xml file. And you give that a value of 1, and that's going to allow multiple users to use the same installation of Office at the same time. In this nugget, we took a look at Office 365. We actually demonstrated how to use Click to Run. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.